Hello, everyone. I just want to give a quick update on everything that's happened, because a lot has, in fact, happened over the past several weeks. Probably the biggest news that's on everyone's mind is the fact that there is now a vacancy on the United States Supreme Court due to the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we're going to get to that. But first, I want to talk about Trump's foreign policy for a little bit. You might have heard that today the United States is not recognizing the re-election of Alexander Lukashenko, and that's a good development. And Trump's foreign policy has honestly been a mixed bag, but this is one thing that that he's made the right decision on. But I'd like to talk about something that's he's probably made all of the right decisions on, and that is regard to Israel. For Trump, Israel's has consistently been the brightest spot in Trump's foreign policy. And while he's definitely made a lot of mistakes, he has that to point to. He's moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which, by the way, was required by U.S. federal law. He's recognized the Golan Heights as part of sovereign Israel, which is actually something that Biden might undo if he becomes president. And he's just recently gotten Israel's third peace agreement with an Arab state ever, with the United Arab Emirates and as well as Bahrain. And he's also gotten two other countries, Kosovo and Serbia, who are enemies with each other, to move their embassies to Jerusalem. These are some good wins for Trump at this point. But it hasn't moved a lot of people's support. It certainly hasn't gotten me to support him. Because I think that for a lot of people, particularly people of Jewish faith, I think a lot of them believe that even though Trump has been good for Israel, it's purely been a transactional foreign policy, and that if Trump needed to, he'd throw Israel under the bus in a heartbeat. But certainly, as of right now, he has what to point to in terms of his support for Israel and everything that he's done for it. And that could potentially help him with Jewish voters, but probably would more likely help him with evangelical Christian voters who are also quite pro-Israel. So it's something that I think Democrats need to keep in mind when they're talking about what Trump has and has not done. But the news is probably on everyone's mind is the vacancy on the Supreme Court. As you've probably heard, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away on Friday night. And since then, there's now, for the third time in Trump's presidency, a SCOTUS nomination battle. It does appear, however, that this time around, Republicans have the votes to confirm whoever Trump picks. And Trump is probably going to announce his pick either on Friday or Saturday. And a lot of people think that the frontrunner is Amy Coney Barrett. And she's got a lot going for her, in terms of the uniqueness of her pick, because not only would she be the first woman that Trump has appointed to the court, it would also be the first time in a while, I believe, that that you have a Supreme Court justice who did not graduate from an Ivy League law school, because I believe that I could be wrong about this. I believe Amy Coney Barrett graduated from University of Michigan Law School. In fact, I'm actually going to confirm that right now. Actually, she graduated from Notre Dame Law School. But still, she did not graduate from an Ivy League school, and her nomination to the court would actually add some law school diversity in terms of the court, not just gender diversity, but also diversity in terms of the types of schools that the justices graduated from, which I think is a good thing, because I think that if you have too many justices on the court who are from the top echelons of American academic life, it could not reflect the it could potentially result in the court not paying due attention to the concerns of Americans who don't graduate from those types of universities, or from no university at all. And I think it's good to have that type of balance on the court. But anyway, Democrats who are hoping to stop this nomination are probably out of luck at this point. Mitt Romney has said he's on board. Chuck Grassley said he's on board. All of these potential swing senators are on board with the nomination. And even Lisa Murkowski, who was one of the two Republicans along with Susan Collins, to say that they should not take up a nomination fight in an election year this close to the election. Even Lisa Murkowski at one point said she'd be open to interviewing whoever and considering whoever Trump picks. And as probably a lot of you remember, in 2016, Republicans held open Antonin Scalia's seat and did not hold confirmation hearings for Merrick Garland, who was chosen by President Obama. And people are accusing Democrats Democrats are accusing Republicans of hypocrisy because that incident happened in 2016, 9 months before the election. This is happening less than 2 months before the election. And so Democrats are essentially accusing Republicans of being hypocrites. Now, I'd like to take a different tack on this, which is that by going through with the nomination, that Trump at this point has a constitutional obligation to put forward a nominee, and the Senate has an obligation to consider that nominee and either vote to confirm or deny. And I'd like to argue that in 2016, the Senate failed in this regard. The Senate did not do their duty in terms of considering the nominee that President Obama put forward. But the fact that they're doing it this time means that this time they are fulfilling their duty. So the fact that they failed, the Senate Republicans failed to do their constitutional obligation in 2016 should not deter them from fulfilling their obligation in this time around. And I think that what this should ultimately, the point I'm ultimately trying to make is that we should depoliticize the court. Supreme Court nominations should not carry the political urgency that they currently do. But I think that the way that that's going to happen is Congress needs to start legislating. And the deadlock in Congress needs to stop. Congress needs to start passing legislation, needs to start putting legislation on the president's desk. And the more that they do that, the less relevant the court will be. The Supreme Court currently occupies an importance in American life that it should not occupy. And the stakes for any battle over any Supreme Court nomination should not be as high as they currently are. And I think that one of the things we do is A, depoliticize the court, and B, have Congress start legislating so that they become a co-equal branch of government. Because currently, Congress has been the least effective of the branches of the federal government, and they need to start asserting their power more. Not just in terms of legislation, but also in holding the other branches accountable. Now, I would like to talk about the Convention on Founding Principles. You might have heard of that big convention that took place 4 weeks ago. That was a counter-programming to the Republican National Convention. It was by a bunch of guys who were dissatisfied with what's happened to the Republican Party, and they put on counter-programming that featured speakers like Tara Setmeyer, Amanda Carpenter, Mark Sanford, people from across the political spectrum, talking about the future of conservatism in the post-Trump era, or offering their vision for what conservatism should look like. And we had a Zoom conference just this afternoon, and we talked about some of the issues that are happening. One thing that was pointed out that I thought was very, very enlightening was the idea that there is no conservative option on the ballot this year. People, who are conservatives who are considering supporting Biden, take a brunt of criticism, are being from some of the political commentariat, those who say that they're not truly conservative. But in reality, I would say that there is no conservative option and that conservatism is not on the ballot. In fact, it could be argued that by voting against Trump, you are in a sense voting in favor of some conservative ideas, like separation of powers would probably be a big example of that. Trump has shown no respect for that. And by voting for the man who's most likely to defeat him, you're voting in favor of separation of powers, among other things. Now, this doesn't mean that I support every single thing that Biden does. I probably disagree with the vast majority of what Biden has advocated, particularly when it comes to his support for repealing the Hyde Amendment. I just, as much as as you probably know, I am pro-life, but the Hyde Amendment, which restricted the federal funding for abortion, was for the longest time a bipartisan measure. And I think it's really sad that it's gotten to the point where even this measure is now becoming a partisan issue. And I do think that Biden is wrong on that issue. And there's plenty of other things which I think he's wrong on. But I also think that he is the best chance to defeat Trump. And you're probably wondering, well, I get you can't support Trump, but why don't you support Jo Jorgensen, who's running as a libertarian? And the truth is, if she could win, I would probably support her. But I'm not counting on that happening unless there's a real surge at the end, and it really she shows the potential to potentially shake up the system and give both parties a run for their money. Yeah, then maybe I could get behind her, but she doesn't have a chance as of right now. And so I'm going with the candidate who has the biggest chance of winning. And I think that there's so much on the line with in terms of the status, in terms of the fate of the republic. I really think that this is a moment of clarity and a testing moment for the American Republic and for the experiment that is America. The stakes have never been higher, and people say that every election. I get that. This time, it really feels like the stakes are higher than they usually are. And one of the worries that I have is that we could see a situation on election night where Trump, is doing really well in the election day votes, and he uses that as the basis to claim victory, even though, in all likelihood, the mail-in votes are gonna put Biden over the top. And during that time, Trump sows doubt in Americans' faith in the electoral system, which is actually not good for America's national security, because it's exactly what Vladimir Putin wants. Putin wants Americans to not trust America's electoral institutions. And, I just want to remind everyone that, the candidate, that Trump is probably going to do really well on election night. And the fact that the votes that come in after that are going to put Biden closer and closer and potentially put him over the top, that's not any evidence of nefariety at all. That's probably what we're going to expect with most Biden supporters voting by mail, or many Biden supporters voting by mail, and with the mail-in ballots disproportionately favoring Biden. We're likely going to see that. So nothing nefarious about that. I would actually like to talk about a possible path for both candidates, and I would like to posit I wish I could show you a map, but I still have to figure out the technical difficulties, the technical details about that. But essentially, my map, for a narrow Trump victory, has Trump holding all of those Midwestern states, as well as flipping Minnesota. So he wins on the strength of Ohio, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And if that were to happen, Biden could potentially flip Arizona. He could potentially flip Florida, and it would still not be enough. In 2004, Bush actually won all 6 of the so-called competitive states with large Hispanic populations: Florida, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. Bush won all 6 of those states in 2004. Trump only won 3 of them in 2016. But if he does really well in the Midwest, he could potentially win with just 1 of them, that being the state of Texas. Texas is an absolute minimum for Trump. Assuming that he wins the entire Midwest, all of the competitive Midwestern states, he would need, at a very minimum, Texas. And he would also need either Florida, or he would need to win both North Carolina and Georgia. So if he's winning those 3 states, Texas, North Carolina, and Georgia, then the Midwest, sweeping the Midwest, would be enough to put him over the top, and he would not need to win Arizona or Florida. And so I just wanted to touch upon that potential path for Trump to win. And Biden could potentially win without the Midwest, as long as if he can put together wins in Arizona. He holds everything like that Hillary Clinton won, like Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada. And he adds to that Arizona, Florida, and either North Carolina or Georgia. That would be enough for Biden to win. And so what's essentially happening is that the Sun Belt is becoming more Democratic at the same time that the Rust Belt has become more Republican. But on the whole, the trends benefit Democrats because Republicans need the Rust Belt a lot more than Democrats do. And there are multiple potential winning combinations for Democrats in the Sun Belt, even if they get swept in the Rust Belt. So I just wanted to touch upon that really quickly. But anyway, really great talking with you guys to this evening. And I hope to do this more often. I'm really glad I had some free time to do this now. But I really hope to do this more often, especially as the election approaches. I just got a lot of stuff on my plate, but hopefully I will find the time to get on camera and explain everything that's going on and be able to have conversations about stuff that's going on. And I hope to have more interviews with some of the friends I've had on this channel before. But really looking forward to all that. And I will see you all next time.